I knew very little about the genocide at Srebrenica. I obviously knew some detail from looking at the news, watching and listening to what was happening in the early and mid-1990s. I suppose that gave me a perspective that was generated by the news media at that time, but it's only when you come here that you really see the horror of what happened, the real fact of what happened, and the huge challenge there is for people here living in this society to move on from it in a spirit of reconciliation to make a better future for all communities in this country. The days that I've spent in Bosnia so far have been really impactful for me personally. They have shown what a beautiful country this is and what wonderful people live in this country, but they really do demonstrate the challenges this country has moving forward. Not just around reconciliation, but also about how it makes the politics of the country work and how you regenerate in social and economic terms. All of those are very important, all of them are linked, and they are huge challenges. I think what I also pick up is that the outside world, Europe in particular, have a responsibility to do an awful lot to help this country move forward. But it'll also be generational. We're talking, I think, about something that will take decades and the next generations to really complete a cycle of regeneration and reconciliation. Well, in returning to Northern Ireland, I think it's very important to remember the lessons from here, to apply some of those lessons to what is a country coming out of conflict itself when you talk about Northern Ireland and Ireland. I think it's important we use the time we have there to raise awareness of what has happened here and what the needs are in moving this society forward. And I think it's also important that we reflect on how people in Northern Ireland and Ireland can help in Bosnia, because I think there are mutual lessons that we both can learn and help each other.
Well, in 1996 I was in Thailand, and we had an international conference looking at the lessons. I'm from Ireland, and at that time I was a human rights worker in Ireland, and we were looking at the lessons from Bosnia, Ireland and Burma. And that was the first time that I really began to read about Bosnia. I remember the massacre, though I wouldn't have had detailed knowledge about it. And I think really you have to come to a country to understand what's happening in a country or what has happened. So it's such a privilege to be here in this beautiful country, hearing the dreadful stories and experiences of what happened. Well, I suppose first of all, the biggest lesson for me, I'm now a politician in the Assembly in the north of Ireland. The biggest lesson for me is that there needs to be an agreement that is supported by all parties to the conflict, with a correct framework that all parties to the conflict, and particularly ex-combatants in the conflict, that they are all supporting. I'd like to see, for me in Ireland, I don't really want to talk about here, but for me in Ireland, what has made a significant difference is grassroots support and buy-in, working with the new political arrangements. But there has to be checks and balances. There can't be an abuse of power, and there has to be continual human rights monitoring. So I think there's lessons that we in Ireland can learn from here, and equally I think there's lessons that all the parties here can learn from what's happening in the Irish-British conflict. Well, when I return to Ireland, I'll continue doing my job in the Parliament. I'll continue building relationships north-south, and I will use whatever networks, community groups, festivals, human rights organisations to ensure that what has happened here is brought to light. And I'm here as part of a very broad delegation, all different politics and none, all different religions and none. And what we want to do is bring home the message of what has happened here and see what we can do. In July 11th, in the Parliament that I'm elected to, we had a commemoration for the victims and survivors of the massacre here, and I hope that next year we do the same, and also that we do some other events as well.
I'm proud to be actually leading the delegation from Northern Ireland, and I'm the chair of the Remembering Srebrenica in Northern Ireland. We have a board which has been created this year, so it's a pride to be chairing this board. I came to know that through my interfaith work in Northern Ireland a couple of years ago, and I knew about it in general, but I mean this work done by the main office in Birmingham came to light to link with Northern Ireland through an interfaith network. I was chairing the Interfaith Forum at the time. So from that onwards, we took that on board and we started to think about it more, to read about it more, and to try to raise awareness about it. It's a great experience, to be honest. Reading about something or seeing videos is completely different from when you come to see the people. I was very impressed by the people 21 years on, and I was impressed by the way they managed to get on top of it. It's really hard when we see those events in real life. But I'm impressed by how the buildings have been built back, and now I know that people are in the process of building the hearts, getting people, those relations together. It's difficult. I know it's difficult, but I was impressed by how the new generations are trying hard to move on forwards with the reconciliation. I think we have a lot to do. We as, let's say figures, if you like, within the society, we have an excellent delegation with a good network from the interfaith, politicians, the community relations councils, the religious sort of representation. So I think we have a duty to raise awareness. I think that's number one, because a lot of people, especially new generations, maybe would need to know about what happens, never to forget about it. And not only that, I think remembering is one issue, which is the past, but I think the future work is the main thing, to say no, never again for this to happen. Let's stand all together against hatred and discrimination, try to create a better future for our children and for the next generation. So raising awareness using our network to do that, I think it would be a big task, but we are really very positive about it, and we're really committed to do it in the future.